Oh, hi! I didn't see you there. Well, now that I've got your attention, let me introduce myself. My name is Chris Rager, and I'm a student here at San Diego State University. I'm here to show you a brief documentary on Indian gaming, specifically Indian gaming here in California. Many of us San Diegans know what Indian gaming is like, as we see a lot of commercials on it on the radio and on TV. Heck, even SDSU's arena is named after an Indian gaming tribe, the Viejas Band of Indians. So how much do you know about casinos? I know that when we're too lazy to go to Vegas, we usually go to an Indian casino. But what's the story behind Indian casinos? As white Americans moved westward in North America, they encroached and inherited most of the land owned by native Indians. As American population grew, Indians were left with less and less land. Finally, in 1851, Congress passed the Indian Appropriations Act. This authorized the creation of Native American organizations. And under this act, some land was forcibly taken away from Indians as they were required to move to a different allocated location. Unbelievably so, some Indians were appropriated to harsh locations with limited water, plants, and wild game. Many Indians were left with land that was incapable for agriculture, and some were allocated to harsh conditions with extreme hot and cold seasons. Native Americans were stripped of their normal living conditions and thus had difficulty adjusting to their new land. This economic landscape set the stage for poverty in Indian reservations. Due to the inability to adjust to harsh living conditions, added with the fact that state governments did not uphold and honor land treaties with Indian nations, the majority of Indian nations became victims to widespread poverty. The nations were unable to become self-sufficient as they depended heavily on U.S. government welfare and federal funding for housing, transportation, and education. Upon a certain Supreme Court ruling in the case Bryan v. Itasca County, the judges ruled that states do not have the authority to tax Indians on Indian reservations, and that they also lack the authority to regulate Indian activities by Indians on the reservations. This precedent paved the path for Indian gaming. American Indians have always been familiar with gaming. The Chumash Indians, native to Southern California, played games that required skill and chance. Every village in the Chumash tribe had a specified gaming area called Malam Tepupis. According to the Chumash Indians' website, their ancestors often gambled on the outcome of these games. One of the first tribes to implement tribal gaming was the Cabazon Band of Mission Indians near Indio, California. The Cabazon suffered from extreme poverty, and due to neglected treaties, they were left with little land. As the California lottery became popular in the early 1980s, the Cabazon started to raise revenue by operating bingo games and poker halls. City and county authorities tried to shut down gambling operations, but the Cabazon tribe sued and won in federal court. The Supreme Court reviewed this case, and it led to Congress passing the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. This act gave tribal sovereignty to create casinos, and that states and tribes should create tribal-state compacts. This means that gaming tribes' revenues are not taxed, and that states do not have access to the financial records, but that states can occasionally confiscate revenue, which serves as a special tax on Indian reservations. However, the act also stated that the federal government has the ultimate power to regulate Indian gaming. So what impact has Indian gaming had on Native Americans? For starters, it has allowed gaming tribes to be self-sufficient. No longer do they suffer in poverty and are dependent on government aid. Now they support their own infrastructure as they are able to provide their own schools, hospitals, roads, and more importantly, jobs. Also, some tribes are able to pass the profit on to other non-gaming tribes. Indian casinos have become the way of life to many tribes. Before, some Native American children in California had to leave school at age 12. Now, they have a great educational system and go on to top private colleges in America. Before, many tribes were known for their susceptibility to alcoholism and drug abuse. Now, they are filled with poise and valor as they hinge on their gaming successes. Of course, there are arguments against tribal gaming. First, there is state opposition because states want a portion of tribal gaming revenue. Second, there is local opposition as non-Indian residents residing near reservations are against the spike in traffic and population. Third, there are those that argue wealth of gaming tribes are not effectively trickling down to non-gaming tribes. Regardless of the opposition's claims, one cannot dispute that tribal gaming has reawakened American Indian life in the U.S. Once forgotten and tucked away in off-beaten lands, many Indian tribes are now self-sufficient, capable of supporting their own economy and infrastructure, while funding less.
Well, we've reached the end of this documentary. Now you know a little something about Indian casinos, especially here in California. Perhaps next time you're in Pechanga or Pala, you can share with others about the financial and socio-economic impacts of Indian gaming. Thank you.